Chapter 55. The McGorkles rent the house on Dragonfly Drive, and Warble immediately begins work on his business plan. He will finance it himself and neither seek nor accept business partners. No partners means nobody to share the profits with, and nobody that must be consulted when decisions are made. It also means that word of the undertaking will not leak until he himself is ready to unveil the particulars of the groundbreaking venture in a news conference. 3 days pass. Mary gets to know the town, where the stores are, that is, the only thing about the town that is really important to her, while Warble works feverishly on his speech for the news conference and the pricing structure for the various services Biotrans will offer. He only emerges from the basement den to eat and sleep. Warble eats his meals as quickly as possible, lost in thought all the while. He wouldn't have even noticed the difference if Sarah Ferguson had been sitting across from him at the table instead of his wife Mary. Warble is a man obsessed, driven, compelled to get his speech perfect, making people want to, feel as if they need to, make use of his service. He also spends hours upon hours determining what is the maximum amount the market will bear for his transplants. How much can he charge? What is the cutoff point just a smidgen below where people would say, "Nah, forget it, I can't afford that much"? Warble, being a good businessman, doesn't want to leave any money on the table. On the 4th evening after their arrival in Coeur d'Alene, Warble emerges from his den early, 9:42 p.m. Since he hasn't been going to bed until after 1 a.m. the last few nights, Mary is surprised to see him as he practically runs into the living room, beaming. She looks at him expectantly. "I've done it, Mary!" Warble cries out jubilantly. "I'm a genius. I'm even more of a genius than I already knew I was. Stop the presses. Batten down the hatches. It's time for the world to bow before its great benefactor, me." Warble calls all the major news networks, and due to the fact that Warble's enthusiasm is contagious and intriguing, it will make a good story anyway, even if he makes a fool of himself, the news directors think. And because it happens to be an extraordinarily slow news day, all the networks agree to have representatives in the lobby of the Coeur d'Alene Resort at 6 p.m. Pacific Time the following night, which is the optimal time for simultaneous national exposure, since most people on the West Coast will be home from work by then, but it will still be early enough, 9 o'clock, for those in the East to watch Warble's press conference before hitting the sack. Warble enjoys a deep, dream-filled sleep that night. Satisfied with himself, to put it mildly, he drifts off with a sublime smile of contentment on his face. He dreams of the immense piles of money in which he will soon be frolicking about. He will have to build large vaults and storehouses in which to hoard his stockpile of gold coins. Warble dreams of eventually having 3 sons. Sam, Buck, and Mac, who will courageously and loyally defend any offensive perpetrated against their father's cash. In his most vivid dream, his 3 sons riddled the Beagle Boys full of holes with their submachine guns and then fried them Cajun style with their flamethrowers, leaving the gold unscorched, of course. Warble awakens in the morning refreshed, revivified, and invigorated. There's nothing like the smell of impending success and inconceivable wealth in the morning, he tells Mary, who groggily mumbles something about letting her rest in peace. Warble, though, is full of energy and springs out of bed. He showers, brews coffee, prepares breakfast, for himself only, forgetting that Mary too sometimes likes to eat, and scarfs it all down in record time. Bursting with nervous energy, scarcely able to contain himself in anticipation of the exciting events to occur that evening, Warble, on a whim, runs down the steps, flings open the front door, and, without even hesitating long enough to close it behind himself, races down the street to Wolfie's to pick up the morning paper, a Hostess fruit pie, and a box of frosted Pop-Tarts. Warble is out of breath by the time he returns home. He's glad he left the door open so he doesn't have to expend the energy needed to open it. Warble's sprint on the way to Wolfie's turned to a jog and then a slow-motion power walk on the way back from that convenience store. Now he is wheezing, barely able to drag himself up the stairs. He rips open a package of Pop-Tarts and puts them in the toaster. Sitting down at the dining room table, Warble opens the Coeur d'Alene Press and tears open the fruit pie. Reading the news with a bemused expression on his face, Warble bursts out laughing all of a sudden. What a bland and easily amused world to print these types of stories, Warble thinks. War, pollution, global warming, diseases, flooding, earthquakes, economic collapse. After tonight, they will have far more interesting and important subjects to write about.